Welcome to Made in Moray, the podcast that focuses on the successes and struggles of local businesses. Let's get started.
My name's G. I'm your host, and today I have the pleasure of time with Sarah Medcraf, who is the CEO of Moray Chamber of Commerce. And just checking out her bio, it reads that she deals with member recruitment and retention, event organization and management, encouraging business links, educational links, and writing columns and press releases. Did I get it right? Do you want to add anything to that?
You got it virtually spot on. I think that's quite an old bio. It's probably about 4 or 5 years old now. That probably proves that we should be updating the Chamber website, meet the team page more than anything else. A lot of what I do now is focused on the bigger picture. So a lot of work with strategy, a lot of work with long-term thinking, collaboration, and a real focus on lobbying and support for businesses, whether that be through the local authority, Scottish Government or UK Government as well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It also says that outside of the chamber that you're working through a list of log cabins that you can stay in around Scotland. How far did that get? Were you still doing stuff like that?
We still do that, yeah, for sure. So we've probably visited 14, I think, in the last few years. So we 1 to 2 a year. We do like a sunny summer holiday as well. Sorry, Scotland, but you don't get that here quite so often. But we do enjoy a sort of autumn winter log cabin, shut off from the world, bit of R&R, and as long as they accept the dog too, we'll happily travel anywhere.
Yeah. Where was the best cabin? Where would you recommend if I wanted to do something like that? What would you recommend?
Oh, 2 probably. There's one on the west coast, just not far out of Oban, and that's really secluded and it's really, really beautiful. But actually, we've stayed in one not far outside Mulben in Keith.
Okay.
And everyone says that's really funny. Why do you go so close for a holiday? Well, actually, it's just a change of scenery, and what you get by staying local, in terms of where to go and eat, what to buy, you can and you're not spending half of your weekend traveling to get to and from what should be a break. You're 20 minutes down the road.
Yeah, what a great idea, because you're not having this really, really long journey that you have to prepare for either. You could jump in the car and go down the road. Wow, makes perfect sense. Okay, let's move on to the business element of our chat today, which is about your work and the Moray Chamber of Commerce. So what exactly is a Chamber of Commerce?
Chambers have been around for hundreds of years. We're actually quite a relatively young chamber. I mean, Inverness Chamber celebrated 125 years last year, and we're merely 20 next year. But what they are is they are business organisations, clubs, if you want to call them that, but I don't like using that word, but it sort of gives you the idea of what they are. And our job really is to be the voice of business, and that's to be able to help businesses of all sizes and sectors, all shapes, and to be able to help them succeed, whether that be through support through events and helping them network and raise their profile, whether that be through passing information on policy and legislation and helping influence and shape that for their future, or whether that be just on simple cost-saving measures that we can negotiate on their behalf. So there's a whole range of things, and rarely somebody would join a chamber, which is optional to join, for a one size. It would be very much a pick and mix approach.
Wow, and the types of businesses that join, are they small, medium-sized, big business, mixed? How is it spread out?
It is mixed for sure. The nature of Moray's business community, we are majority micro businesses. We've got what you call the Big 10, which is your Big 10 businesses who employ more than 250 people. You could probably name them. It's your Walkers, it's your Diageo, it's your Baxters, etc. But then we've got this huge gap where there's only a couple of hundred businesses in between. And then most people employ less than 9 staff. So naturally, by the nature of the demographic of the region, we do have a lot of small businesses, a lot of one-man bands, sole traders. But equally, there is the ones in the middle who are the medium enterprises that we've got, and the big, huge international brands, which we need to be really proud of as well.
Absolutely. How has your interaction with these businesses changed within the past month, since so many businesses have had to deal with this recent crisis?
Yeah, so the pandemic has obviously proved really trying on everybody. I think there's very, very few businesses who are coming out of this well. And it's nice to see businesses diversifying and changing, seeing opportunity in quite a gloomy time. You know, I've always wanted to be getting my products online. I've never had the time. Now I've got the time, and now I need to, seize the opportunity. But generally, overall, it's quite a glum picture. A lot of businesses struggling to know where their money for their staff are coming from. Are they going to have to lay off staff? Businesses who've put their life savings into their new enterprise, only 6 months later to be hit by something that's absolutely unprecedented, right the way through to the bigger companies who are far from safe in this. You know, they have the same challenges on everybody else, just on a much bigger scale. So it's something that, we're really trying to help everybody with, and they've all got different demands.
Yeah. Well, everybody has their bills to pay at the end of the day, whether it's keeping the lights on in your warehouse or getting that loan payment paid off to the bank. Everyone's got something that they have to deal with. So it really does affect everybody. What are businesses crying out for at the moment? What are you hearing from them that they need?
Quite frankly, it's cash. They need cash just now, because they don't know if they're going to be able to, as you say, pay those bills, keep those lights on, pay those staff, be able to retain the talent that they need to retain within their business to be able to see this out the other side. Businesses look to us quite often just now for a number of things, mainly, lobbying and supporting and flying the flag for Moray and championing what those businesses need and being that voice. But quite often, I'm considering putting counsellor on my CV, because quite often people will just phone and want to chat and want to use me as a sounding board or cry. I've had a couple of tears in the last few weeks. It's people put their heart and soul into their business, and for something that is not their control is taking it away is really quite a tragedy.
So what help is available right now if a business is struggling?
That really depends on the size and sector that you're in at the moment. There's been a lot of support announced for the tourism industry, retail, hospitality and leisure, along with there's some government support out there for paying your staff on a new furlough scheme. There is a year's free, if you want to call it that, but exemption on non-domestic rates for all businesses in those particular sectors. On a more general basis, anybody who's eligible for the Small Business Bonus Scheme or Rural Relief Scheme is entitled to a £10,000 grant from the local authority, which has come through Scottish Government. And there's some other little pots as well. And as I say, it really does depend on the business that you're at. But one thing that I've just learned today is that there's over 4,000 businesses in Moray, and the council have advised me that at least or almost 3,000 of them are eligible for something, yet only 800 have applied. So where's the other 2,000 odd businesses who are entitled to some sort of grant support from the local authority and aren't applying for it? We need to talk to you.
Oh, absolutely. When you say there's 4,000 businesses, I find that really, really interesting. Myself being a member of the chamber and taking advantage of that membership and enjoying certain things like your monthly newsletter that focuses on businesses, enjoying the fact that you organize social events. Now they're digital social, but you still organize the opportunity for people to get together and talk. There's also legal support in there as well, which is fantastic because lawyers are expensive, right? So how many members does the chamber have around about at the moment? Do you know how many?
So we have 200 members at the moment.
Okay. So 200 is a good number, but there's 4,000 businesses out there that are not taking, well, that would be 3,800, right? that are not taking advantage of this opportunity that is here right now. What can we do to get the message out to people? What can we do? How can we help?
That's the golden question. I mean, you know, if we're completely honest, we aren't. We need to get better at marketing. You know, what we are, what we do. Quite often, particularly when I first started at the Chamber 5 years ago, it was the chambers for big businesses. I even had an insulting couple of comments on that it's it's an old boys club, you know, and it's not ideal. And you know, we've been working really hard to change that perception. We've been, you know, writing newspaper articles. We've been doing so much, but you know, we aren't funded by anything other than our members. So what you pay us pays the bills and keeps the lights on. So we don't have masses of marketing budget. We don't have masses of budgets to be able to say, this is who we are, come and join us. And quite often retention is so important to us. You know, retention arguably is more important to us than getting new members, because we want to keep that family and that community. So we spend so much time working with our existing members that sometimes we don't go out and actually try and ask for business ourselves. We're too busy trying to get it for everybody else.
Yeah. How do you manage that communication with 200 businesses then? Because obviously you don't have time to talk to them all individually on a personal level. Well, probably you don't. I don't know. How does it work?
I think we do, really.
Okay.
Over a year, if you do it over a year's basis, you know, and we will look at what they're looking for out of the chamber. We'll try and engage directly, be it via a phone call or a face-to-face meeting, ideally twice a year, but we'd hope for more. We don't want to do too much either, because, you know, we're an add-on to somebody's service. And although we feel we're valuable, equally, we don't want to get to that stage where it's, oh, it's Sarah from the chamber again. She only saw me 3 months ago. Can't she leave me alone just now? And, you know, we are there for businesses when they need us. Businesses need us for a variety of reasons. I've got members who in the last 5 years, who have been members for probably 15 years, who I've spoken to once. But then I've got other members who I speak to probably 2 or 3 times a week. And everybody needs a different thing from their chamber. And that actually works okay for us, because if everybody had the same level of need and same level of demand, we probably wouldn't be able to cope with it being such a small team. So being able to have that, everybody's got different expectations is really useful. The bottom line is, though, you get out what you put in. So if you want to engage with your chamber, you want to give us information on what's happening in your business, tag us in social media, come along to events, engage, then you will get far more out of it than if you just pay your subscription, join and sit quiet on the sidelines.
Absolutely, totally agree. Especially from personal experience, right? You gotta jump in the water if you want to navigate to getting somewhere. So how does the team work in terms of organization? Who's in the team and what are their roles and responsibilities?
Well, it's a funny time to be asking that, to be honest with you, because we are short-staffed at the moment. So over the last few years, I'll give you a little bit of history just to put it in a bit of context. We successfully received the application of the grant to host the Developing Young Workforce Group, and also Moray Speyside Tourism as well. So we've been sort of a 3-pronged fork for the last few years, if you want to call us a fork.
Trident. There we go.
Yeah, let's go for trident. It's a bit nicer than prodding somebody with a fork. And up until last summer, we were hosting DYW, but we passed that along to the college so that could flourish over there in its correct environment. And also with Moray Speyside Tourism, they were really successful in getting a tourism bid across the line early January. So they've now gone on their own as of literally 2 weeks ago, 31st of March, which just leaves the chamber. And that's a really interesting time for us to sort of have a look at the wood from the trees. What are we doing? But in terms of our chamber staff, we run on a team of 2. So it's me and currently our vacancy. We don't have a second person at the moment. So everything that has been put out through the chamber, whether that be a social media post, whether it be paying a bill, whatever it may be, is coming from me right now. And hopefully, after all of this is done, all this pandemic's out the way, we will be able to recruit somebody else. But as every business is being hit just now, so are we. We can't make money on our events. We can't get new members on board. You know, we can't do any of these things that we would normally do. So are we going to be in a financial position to recruit a second person? Watch this space.
My goodness. Oh my, what a drama, right?
Story of my life.
Oh, wow. Um, what is the most used resource of the chamber? Is it you personally, or is there something that people? I'm just saying
Um,
that. I'm just thinking that if you have to cover all your bases right now, it must be really complicated and difficult.
I suppose yes on my time, but it's obviously something that I'm delighted to do. I don't think I could work anywhere that isn't engaging with people all day long. I mean,
Mhm.
even working from home the last month, I've not
Yeah.
felt disconnected from our members at all, which is really great. And I think, don't get me wrong, nothing beats a face-to-face meeting or a face-to-face event, but we are doing a close second just now. A lot of people use the social media opportunities and also our newsletter, but the place where it can give more value is people engaging directly with us on what matters to them, because we can work with the council and Highlands and Islands Enterprise and the governments and everything else to make Moray a place that people want it to be, but we can't do that without speaking to them. And obviously, we don't want to just keep sending survey after survey after survey, because people have got survey fatigue, and we want to be hearing from people on the real issues and the real things that matter to them. And you can only do that by looking at the colour of their eyes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, I believe there was a meeting online today, earlier today. Is that right? You had something
Yes, there
online.
was.
Tell me a little bit about that. How was it?
That actually went quite well. So that was our second webinar. So we did one a week or 10 days ago with banks, building societies and accountants around the practical tips that they can offer you and your business during this pandemic. We've moved on a little bit from that now in terms of what businesses are looking for. So today we reached out and held a webinar with the Moray Council, Highlands and Islands Enterprise and Business Gateway. And those are public sector agencies that we work closely in partnership with for the good of the business community. And it was really important because I sit on a Moray Business Resilience Forum. I know what those public sector agencies are doing for you and your business. However, you and your business would not know that, because it's okay, I can communicate it through the channels, but hearing it from the horse's mouth, really what they're doing on the ground to help support you and keep you going, is really crucial in a time like this. You need all the friends you can get.
So what are the kinds of things that are going on in the background that people don't see?
Oh, well, for example, there's a Moray Economic Partnership, which is a partnership based, which actually was formed after we successfully saved RAF Lossiemouth in 2011, I think. Somebody will probably correct me on that year, but and that was formed with mixture of public, private, and third sector partners to be able to put the economy first. Now, that could be talking about a childcare crisis. It could be talking about transportation or the lack of public transport, or what we could to improve it. It could be infrastructure, digital infrastructure. It could be all these things. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And not to even mention the Moray Growth Deal, which is coming out, hopefully we'll get an announcement shortly on that. I think the pandemic's put a bit of a pause on it, but I'm told that we're still due to be expecting some good news soon on that real boost to our economy.
Mm. Did you say that you were part of saving the RAF base or something there?
Yeah, so that was pre me, but it was pre
Okay.
me, pre Sarah. It's like DC and BS.
Yes.
It's the wrong BS, I think, isn't it? So yeah, 2000. I think it was 2011, and they were campaigning to keep RAF Lossiemouth as a base and not close it. And the Chamber led a Moray task force at the time, and that had representatives on it, including politicians and otherwise. And there was campaigns outside Westminster, and there was a lot of good positive lobbying and press coverage, and we managed as a group collectively to save the base.
Wow. And that is such a key element to the local economy as well. I personally could not imagine the economy existing without that injection of work and finances and resources into the economy, especially as I live in Lossiemouth.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll correct me, but I'm sure the last figures, it's something like 120 million to the economy each year or something like that, the base is worth. So a
Wow.
lot of money.
Do we know what percentage that is?
I could
Roughly?
find it, but I don't know off the top of my head.
No, that was an unexpected question. I apologize.
That was not part of it.
No, I'm curious. I was curious about these little things in the background that are happening that people don't see. I think there's far more happening that people don't see than they're actually aware of, and that if a little bit more light is shed upon all of the people in the background doing all of these things, the fact that nobody sees you at home working 12 hours a day, contacting people contacting you, no one sees the emails going bing, 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 bing into your into your email account, and realizing that you don't have enough time to answer them all, and you can't really prioritize them sometimes because they're all important. So it's crazy. How do you manage all that? How do you switch off? How do you organize your time?
I actually think, to be honest with you, it's one of my strengths is my time management skills. I'm the first person to say any development areas. We don't like calling them weaknesses, you see, we call them development areas. So I'm the first person to point out those, but time management and then prioritization, is something it's really important. I mean, there's some basic tools out there, there's charts that you can do in terms of, the urgent and important scale and what's urgent and what's important. You can map out your day according to that. But actually the bottom line is, to-do list, prioritize those, get them in an order that is every morning, come in, make sure your desk's tidy. Before you even open your emails, make sure you are ready to go. And always do that thing. You've started the bottom of the emails, work the way up, have a glance at them all, see if there's anything crucial. And if not, go back to the oldest in terms of time and work the way through it that way.
Start at the bottom, not at the top. Did I get that right?
Absolutely, yes. I'm one of these people who clears my inbox. So hopefully most days, even if it's had to be transferred onto a to-do list, by the time I log off for the day, there is nothing sitting in my inbox because I file everything away into certain files. It might be members, it might be accounts, it might be whatever. And if there's something I can't necessarily deal with that day, it'll get added onto my to-do list for the next day, because I think having a clear inbox is key for me personally to having a clear mind, and then coming in the next day and seeing that anything that's sitting there has only been in the last 12 hours.
Wow. What an amazing skill. How did you learn to do that?
I don't know.
It must come from somewhere, though. Not everybody is that organized.
I know, but it drives some people mad. I mean, it even drives some of my friends mad. When we're due to go away for a weekend, it has to be meticulously planned. And the downside is when I then take a break and don't do it, everyone's like, why has Sarah not planned this meticulously? I'm feeling like a lost fruit.
Yeah, people will be asking you if you're okay. Yeah,
I know.
Haven't checked your phone for 3 hours. Are you okay? I can imagine. So what is your origin story in terms of getting into the position that you're in right now? How did you journey to this point?
I will give it in a whistle-stop tour. And this is where, and I say this with a smirk, but I say it far from in a big-headed manner, but I've never applied for a job that I've got. So
my brain is trying to process that.
I have applied for many jobs,
okay,
but I've never been successful in them. All the posts that I've held, I've never applied for. So
does that mean that people went out and headhunted you?
Yeah, essentially. So if I take my time from when we were in Scotland, so we moved to Scotland in 2009. My husband was in the RAF. We were viewing a rented property in Hutman, and I was working at a housing association down in Yorkshire. So I had a conversation around, this is what I was looking to do. Do you know if there's any jobs, that type of thing? And I got a phone call saying, we might have a job. Would you like to come work with us? So that was really great. And we've got this, excuse the language, but we've got this saying, me and my husband, that if in doubt, go balls out. And that's kind of what we sort of live by. All in. That's all it. In. Right? All in. So we decided to do that. And actually, without going into too much, detouring too much, it was actually really crucial at the time because I took that job and they wanted me to start as soon as we were due to move in. But as we got posted, my husband actually got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And he got really, really sick, had to have an operation, and ended up staying down at my mum's house in Yorkshire whilst I moved 350 miles north to start a new job at 18 years old.
Oh my
Crazy.
Wow.
I think naivety helped me, because if you'd asked me if I would do that now, I would be far more risk averse. But at the time I was like, well, what have I got to lose? If it doesn't work, I'll go back home, and sort of quite cap in hand about it. So I worked there for a good few years and really enjoyed it. And it just got to the stage where, no hard feelings of the place, but it got to the stage where I felt that I couldn't go any further. And that's okay if you're at a stage in your life or an age in your life or a journey that you're content with that. But at the time I wasn't. So I said, right, I'll give it till summer, see how we go. And one of my friends was a recruitment agency, and he'd said, oh, I've got this great job for you. It's working in telecoms. And I just laughed, and I was like, absolutely no way am I doing anything to do with telecoms. I am not in that, And he says, no, it's an operations manager post. So it's managing the office, managing the people who know about telecoms. So I took that job, and I won't go into it on this interview. It might be a couple of wines conversation, but it
okay. I'll put that in the back of my head and order the wine.
But it didn't turn out how I'd expected it to be. So, but that was just by the by. I mean, you always get a stepping stone before you get to your next place. It wasn't ideal, but kept looking for something else. So anyway, I applied for a job at the chamber for what was, I think at the time, communications and marketing or something like that. Didn't necessarily have much skills in that particular area. And I thought, do you know what I can do? I can maybe elaborate it a little bit on my marketing skills of marketing residential properties and, trying to find sort of crossovers and transferable skills. And I went to the interview and I knew straight away, that I wasn't suitable because I wasn't creative. I'm not that creative a person, and that's okay. Like, I'm happy with that. And they gave it to one of my friends, which I knew because obviously Murray's quite a small place. That was really great. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call saying, so we didn't, want you for that job, but actually the operations manager job's come up. Would you like that one instead? We think you would be a perfect fit for it. Okay, great. Now, they kind of knew of me because my husband was sitting on the chamber council at the time. But by no means does that mean it was a given. I went through a rigorous interview process at that point, but I didn't apply for that job. And then once I'd been in the chamber a little while and we'd taken on Murray Speyside Tourism and developing the young workforce, the directors decided that at that point, my operations manager should become CEO. And that was 2015. And as they say, the rest history, really, but still learning and growing every single day.
Wow. What's interesting to me, because I've got a background in education, is this idea of qualifications versus skills. Yeah. And what's your perspective on that? Do you think that we need to have everybody specifically qualified for the job, or do you think people can pick up the skills as they go? Well, what's your perspective?
There's a quote which says, if somebody gives you an opportunity, take it and figure out how to do it later. And I think I believe in that. If you're going to get given a chance, do it. In terms of the education front, I don't have a degree. I am currently studying our CPD at Murray College UHI in leadership and management for contemporary businesses and ethical businesses. Mm-hmm. But that was pure chance that came across. And I want to do that. But there is a place for academic skills. There is a place for qualifications, particularly in areas if you want to be a vet or if you want to be an electrician or if you want to be these sort of things. But for the types of roles that I've been in, and it's much more about the person and engagement and that sort of softer skills, I think you can teach the job to an extent, and you can teach and you can learn and you can expand your own mindset on that. I think if you're not the right person for it, if you're not quite happy to come on a podcast with G, or if you're not quite happy to stand up and speak at 350 people at a dinner, then that's not the job for you, regardless of your qualifications.
Absolutely. So you described earlier how you were organizing your emails. And you sound like a pretty organized person, and I don't think somebody could or should do your job if they're not organized. Where did you learn the organizational skills?
I think it's probably hard to tell. Probably just an amalgamation along the way. Obviously, when I was working at the Housing Association down in Yorkshire, the department I was in was a lot about the social care element. So it was the handrails going on the rented properties for the elderly. It was the shower conversions, that type of thing, and you learn what is important and what's a priority at that point when you know somebody can't physically have a shower themselves without it or something like that. And I think as time goes on, and you realize what is and isn't important, it just becomes a bit more natural to do that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. And it just grows with you, and you learn. Don't get me wrong, I make many mistakes for sure, but I think if you learn from them and you look forward, and you try not to overthink, and I say that with a smirk because I can be a terrible overthinker, but if you generally try not to overthink and just flow with it, you seem to be a bit more productive.
Nice point. To do the work that you do, you must need some level of inspiration, or something you use to keep your energy up or stay motivated. So how do you deal with that element?
A couple of strands really probably on that one. So Liz Cameron is the Chief Exec of Scottish Chambers of Commerce. She is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And she inspires me for sure. Whenever I have conversations with her or I'm in her, a call that she's on, you automatically leave feeling more positive and more, I'm going to go kick ass, quite frankly, because she's just got that aura about her. And there's some other great women as well, across Moray and across Scotland, across the UK and the world, that have that sort of impact on people. And it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody in business. It could be a friend. It could be, I've got some really great friends who have got, for example, husbands offshore and they're at home managing 2 kids, under the age of 3. It's like absolutely fantastic. And, watching these people in awe and what they do and their priorities. And it gives you that sort of boost to go. But quite often I will listen to some podcasts. I've been listening to, I'm not a runner. I've been running a bit more. Now. I am working from home because I've got a little bit more flexibility than I once had. But I've been listening to podcasts such as Ali on the Run, which is an American girl, and she's absolutely fantastic. She interviews marathon runners and, talks all to them about sort of their zen and how they do things. And I think when you listen to anybody tell their story, you automatically get sucked in. And when it is about positivity and, beating your own demons and focusing on your life and making positive changes, it's hard not to be enthralled in it.
Absolutely. We've all got elements that we have to overcome either through our businesses or personally in order to take steps forward, which is one of the reasons why the Chamber is there, I think. It's to help people get to the next level. What are the things that you are enjoying right now about the work that you have to do? It might be more difficult because we've all had to change, but there's probably some things that are quite nice that you're involved in as well.
We're in a terrible pandemic. And, first and foremost, before the fact it's an economical crisis, it is a public health crisis. I know people who have lost their lives to this, and it is horrendous. And you can't play that down. But in any situation, in any dark cloud, there's always opportunity, and you need to try and focus on that in order to keep going. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, quite frankly. But there is some great things about what's happening right now. It's the coming together of people. It's the seeing the great news stories that, you will have all seen the gentleman who raised £3 million for the NHS. And, it's things like that you see that give you a bit of hope in dark times like this. But locally on the ground here in Moray, working with my partners such as, HIE, Business Gateway, and seeing how we can directly help businesses. That's what keeps me going. Getting phone calls from businesses to say, I got my grant in today. Thank you so much. I've managed to get this today, thank you. I didn't realise I was entitled to that, thank you. That helpline was really useful. And, you know, I am very lucky in the sense that people do take their time to even just a quick email saying, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. And I just hope that, you know, when all the dust settled, they remember us, quite frankly.
Well, I'm sure they will. I'm absolutely sure they will. You mentioned helplines. Are there some numbers or some lines that people can call if they're stuck or they have problems, or if businesses have problems, they can get advice?
Yeah, so the one I was talking about then is we do have a HR and legal line with experts included as part of the membership, which businesses can phone. And it might be, they might have a question about a contract. They might have a staff member who's repeatedly off sick and they don't know what to do. And, you know, as I said before at the start, a lot of these businesses are so small, they're not going to have HR departments, they're not going to have legal teams. And rather than them just simply burying their head in the sand, there's a first point of call. And that's that helpline there. In terms of the pandemic, you know, there is local helplines available. Scottish Government have announced new helplines, but actually just phone us. We're here to help you. You know, we can signpost you to the right place.
One of the things that puzzles me in the present situation is I hear a lot about essential and non-essential businesses. And from a personal perspective, knowing people who live here locally, all of the businesses seem to be essential to a certain extent. How should we navigate that when we hear about it?
It's really difficult to be honest with you. And there has been some anomalies with the UK and Scottish government on their decisions on what is a key worker and what is a required service. And that's really quite difficult for Joe Blogs in the street to be able to know. I think we all need to remember that we live in Moray. We live in such a unique place that we do have a lot of people employed in our NHS. We do have a lot of people employed with our local authority. We do have a lot of people employed with the food production, whether that be our farmers, whether that be the Baxters of this world, for example. We have a lot of people in retail and we've got great big superstores as well as everything else. So a lot of people will seem like key workers in our region because of the nature of how we're set up. And they absolutely are. You know, I think if anything, we've learned a lot. And I hope government and society has learned a lot over the last few weeks of who is crucial to an organisation.
What have been the hardest parts recently for you? Because I imagine you must also be under some stress as well.
I think not being able to deliver is a really frustrating one. And that's not necessarily as a generic sweeping statement. That could be a business has asked for support, I've given it to them, but it's not the answer they want to hear. And that can be quite disappointing and saddening, actually. My husband's self-employed and he has 3 full-time members of staff. And I know genuinely firsthand the troubles that these businesses are going through, whether it be with difficulty with suppliers or cash flow or staff looking for pay rises when the money's not there and you've not paid yourself for the last 3 months or whatever it may be. And I think that does give me a bit more authenticity when I'm speaking to these businesses, because I genuinely get how difficult it is to be in business at the moment. And that is one of the hardest parts, to be honest with you. Probably another one is just making sure that we are constantly staying innovative and staying relevant. It's very easy for any organisation just to do what they've always done. And not only will you stand still, but eventually you will start to go backwards. So it's really important for us to constantly keep looking forwards. But as you can imagine, being 50% down on your staff team just now in the middle of a pandemic, trying to look forwards, it can be quite frustrating.
It sounds very frustrating. What can people do then in that kind of situation? Say you are in that element of crisis. Is there some course or some skill or some habit, or is there something people need to change? Is there somebody they need to contact? Is there an organization people need to join? Is it just communication? How do we navigate through that?
I think the ultimate part of this is communication. And I think it's the same, going back to the old saying of under promise and over deliver. And I think that's really important to do. So don't promise the world on a plate if you can't deliver it. And I think a lot of people get caught out by that. Now, I am quite strong on expectation management. I make people know that it is just me and that I'm doing all I can, and I will get back to them by X, and I will say that date and time, even if I haven't got an answer straight away, even if it is just to go back to them at X saying, I'm still working on it for you. I think there's that communication piece, and to be able to look forward and have the vision and have the appetite and the excitement to do it is not going to be there all the time. It will come and go. You will one day get out of bed and be, I'm going to, you might be, I'm going to smash 6 interviews this week and I'm going to take over the world and everything's going to be great. And then the next morning you go, why am I doing this? I just need to go get a job. I don't need the stress or the hassle. And that's completely normal to go through those waves of emotions, but it's how you channel it. And I think channeling the negative into a positive more often than not means you're on the right track.
Yep. Turning the problem into an opportunity because you realize that something has to change anyway. So you might as well take control of that element. Otherwise, somebody else will. So having control of your own destiny is very important. How has working from home affected family life? Because for some people, they fit into it naturally. For some people, it's more complex. So how has it worked for you?
So it is working from home, and the social distancing measures came at quite a timely time for us, because we had literally, with the exception of a carpet, had just finished converting our garage into a proper room as part of the house. So had we not done that, I think we'd have been having a very different conversation. But to be able to have a dedicated room where I can come to for my set hours a day and do what I need to do, it's great. As I said, my husband's self-employed. He's still working. He's still busy. So he's sort of taking the morning shift, working 6 till 9. I'm working 9 till 4. And then Alan will work 4 till bedtime. And I'll have Jacob, my nearly 3-year-old, either side of their working hours, and he'll have him during the day so I can do things like this and other Zoom calls and other meetings. It's busy. I am busier now because my job is busier because of the pandemic. My husband's around more rather than been away traveling with work like he has been. And we don't have childcare. We are used to Jacob going to nursery 3 days a week. So to not have any of that is tricky. Usually I work condensed hours. So I work 8 till 6, Tuesday to Friday, and I have a Monday off. I'm still around for emergencies, but there's anything usual that's such a tragic emergency that it can't wait till the Tuesday prior to the pandemic.
Right.
But during this time, I haven't been taking a Monday, which is fine. I've made that decision, but it means that obviously the week's then so jam-packed Monday to Friday, and I finish, just after 4 o'clock, give or take a few emails. And then I'll try and get some solid time with Jacob before he goes to bed, because it's so important for me to have that time as his mum, and I want to have that time. He'll go to bed around 8 o'clock, quick scan of the emails, check there's nothing urgent, and then, I don't know, go for a run or listen to a podcast, watch some crappy American sitcom, switch off a little bit and shower in bed and start again the next day.
Wow. It seems very organized, and I think we do need to be organized at this time. Well, maybe you just describe it in an organized way. It's definitely a new problem for a lot of families to juggle having to take care of their kids themselves at the same time as working. And hopefully from my perspective, more time with the kids is not really a negative thing, and people can turn that into an opportunity to bond a little bit more than they maybe had a chance to.
Oh, far from a negative. I mean, we've baked scones, we've done drawings on the pavement with chalk. In our back garden, not on the street, although it washes off. We have been doing more jigsaws than I care to count, and it's fantastic to have this time with him, because, I read a blog post yesterday, and it's really interesting that, we will be written about in history books around this time, where the schools closed and this happened, and, the economy fell to pieces, and we will remember it like that. But Jacob won't. Jacob will remember it as, mum and dad were home all the time and we were playing in the garden and we were baking and we were trying different foods. That's what he'll remember. He won't remember this pandemic as how we are remembering it.
Mm. Absolutely. It's a great point that we are living through history right now. And I think people will study it and look back on it, which is why it's important to be very aware of everything that's happening around about us right now. If you had a magic wand and could wave it and change one thing about the world around about you, specifically related to your job or your work or what the chamber is doing, if there's one thing that could magically help people at the moment, what would you change?
I'm going to exclude the current pandemic because anybody with a magic wand who wouldn't erase that is bizarre. So let's ignore the current pandemic.
Okay, let's ignore the obvious, right?
Yes, let's ignore the big fat thing that's sticking in the face.
Absolutely.
And probably something around the brand of the chamber, if I'm honest with you. I think we do a very good job, particularly with the resources we've got. We can only do what we've got based on what people optionally choose to pay us. Mm-hmm. So to have a bigger stamp to say, this is who we are as a chamber, this is what we can offer. And actually, the bigger we grow as an organisation, the better it is for all the businesses in the region. We've got people who can then be planning workshops and training courses as well as networking events. We've got people who can be negotiating good rates on insurance and good rates on card machines and good rates on fuel cards. We've got the manpower to be able to deliver that and to be that, vital to a business. We want to be vital to a business. And those who know us and are in our community already, I hope would agree with that. But there's, as you say, there's still 3,800 businesses who don't know about us or don't feel that way.
Yeah, and I think that your organization is especially important for the small businesses and the solopreneurs, people who are trying to do everything themselves, which is a classic mistake because we can't do everything ourselves. We need help from other people, even if it's just someone to listen to our ideas. So I think the small businesses can develop greatly from an investment which is really less than £1 a day, right? It's less than £1 a day, an investment in this organization, which supports the community and supports yourself as well at the same time. So I would encourage people out there to do that. You mentioned brand, and I know that the chamber went through a rebranding process. Can you tell us a little bit about why that happened, why the chamber went through that? Because that's interesting to me personally, because I'm curious about these little changes and why they're important.
It was really, so I had Jacob in 2017 and I was on maternity leave for that year. And when I came back, when you're away from anything that you've been shoulders deep in for long enough, you see the wood from the trees. Mm-hmm. And you can see what works well, what needs to be done, what you can change, that stop, start, continue type approach. And we had the conversation, myself and the directors, to say, look, our brand, what we're trying to be, is not what we look like on paper. It's not what we look like because we are in an albeit beautiful old railway station. We are in a time where image is very important to a lot of businesses, and we still have an old burgundy logo which was created in 2001. And a lot of the negative parts of the chamber, now there wasn't many, but as I said before, the old boys club and the big businesses, was quite attached to that rich royal burgundy brand that we held. And so it was time to sort of have a look at that, but we were very, very cautious not to lose the identity altogether. And that was really quite important for us because yes, we want to be, or we feel we are up and come in and buzzing and nimble and reactive and proactive and all those great things. But equally, we have a great history and heritage, and it's very important that we keep hold of that. So we did some work with Ilse at B is for Brand. I think she's absolutely super. I don't know if you know Ilse, but she's definitely worth checking out. And she did sort of a huge sort of development day with me and the directors to say, what is this going to look like? What do you want? You know, and she was very, very frank, and she was like, stay away from blue's too corporate, and you know, and then whatever else. And what we ended up coming up with our new chamber brand was a sort of abstract version of the old pagoda, which was in the old one, which is the top of a distillery, because we still need to give that nod to the whiskey industry. We have over 50 in a 50-mile radius. And the sort of softer, more modern, neutral tones was to sort of modernize the brand and make the Burgundy more raspberry. So, you know, it was a really fantastic process that we went through with that, and I really enjoyed it. The better part was actually starting to implement it and starting to talk in the way of your brand. And this is who we are, and this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to be portrayed. And this is what, bottom line is, what our why is. And it's so important to have that why. And even now I still really enjoy sort of, if someone asked me to write a piece, sort of digging up the old, it's not even old, but the brand strategy of going, refresh myself on who are we again? What are we? Let's go back to these key points. We want to be there for you. We want to be have a dynamic outlook. We want to have all of these things. And it's really great to still be able to reference that now. Now we've moved into the high street, and we're in a beautiful sort of converted building in an office space with 9 other businesses. We've got the buzz going around the place. I feel that we are becoming much more as we want to be seen on brand, with a fresh branding look, but also how we feel when people walk into our office and what welcome they get. And bottom line is, whenever they see us in the street, they should be able to see that brand coming through me, coming through any other staff member who comes on board. Mm-hmm. That was a long answer to a short question. Sorry about that.
It was a very detailed answer, and the details are important. You also explained to me why the logo has the shape that it has, right? Because I was like, that's a really weird shape. What is that? And now it's like the distillery top part of a distillery.
Pagoda, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The pagoda part. Okay. Now I know. Now I'm wiser. Thank you for that. Right. With people having to work from home, there's a sudden jump to using technology a bit more for communication. How have you found that process within the chamber?
Luckily, okay. Because we have gone through the process, as I said, of Moray Speyside Tourism have moved away, Developing the Young Workforce have moved away, and when we were naturally, just with the age of the computers, we ended up changing computers around a year, 18 months ago. It was one of my stipulations to MJD, our tech provider, that we will absolutely need to be working from wherever. So we have VoIP phones, so if somebody rings a chamber number, right now it rings my mobile. We have got online cloud accounting system. We've got online cloud CRM system. There's nothing that we can't do from sitting here that I could be doing in my office. I've got some old paper files which I may reference back on occasion, but generally everything is saved on the clouds, and that's how I like to work. I like to have a really clean desk. I'm not telling you how chaotic my filing system might be, but I like to have no papers and be quite paper free and work that way. Jacob was playing around earlier and turning the printer off, and I went, oh, that's the printer off. And I says, I don't think I've used it since I've started working from home, so it doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great to see you leading by example, because this community, this region needs people to step up and take the lead, move forward, show other businesses how it's done and that it can be done, so that they can follow. And it raises the bar as well, which is always really important. What's your vision for your personal work and for the Chamber's development in the near future?
I think that we do have a vision of where we'd like to be as an organization. I think every organization does, but I think that we need to be mindful that that can be flexible and fluid. What we would have said on the 1st of January, not knowing there was a pandemic around the corner, versus what we would say on the 1st of May, are very different situations. If I'm really completely honest with you, G, I would like to just make sure that we come out of this okay. We don't have a lot of cash reserves like many businesses don't. We aren't able to operate in the usual manner. We're not even able to look at things like our annual dinner, which we normally would be starting to plan and have tickets on sale for just now. All of these big things are really changing the way we're working. So the future, how I'm looking right now, is just to make sure we stay afloat, quite frankly. And I think we will. We've got really great support. We're really thrifty with our pennies. But the bottom line is it's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's tough for a lot of businesses. Is there something that the community could do more to support the chamber and the work that you're involved in?
I think obviously the easy one is if they're not part of the chamber, they don't know what we do. So quite often if you're not part of it, you think, who are they? What have they been doing? And they might not realise some of the successes that we've had on behalf of the business community, or that they might have made a really great connection. I mean, we've made some really great collaboration connections. I mean, even just during this pandemic, we teamed up Jill at Ava Gin with... she doesn't mind me calling her Ava Jill, but I best not for the purpose. And the Walker's Shop, Red McLean's Bakery, AM Details for Bottles, and basically whether it was bottles, ethanol, glycerin, we got all of these companies together to work with Ava Gin and create our alcoholic hand gel, which was a fantastic achievement to be able to put out to members. Really, really fantastic. So we really like the collaboration element of it, and that's really important to us, and businesses won't see that if they're not part of it. If I have a conversation with you and we are just talking generally, instantly when I'm at my next meeting, if something is said that makes me think, that will really help G, then I'll instantly do that connection. But sometimes it's not so clear to the outside world, all the little things that we do. So yeah, come and investigate us, have a chat, have a coffee, even if it's a virtual one. You might need to bring your own tea bags just now, but I'm happy to sort of let you know what we do and why you should be part of our community. And
I also think that it's good for people to be self-organizing as well at the same time. There's no reason why businesses can't get in contact with each other and offer each other the opportunity to help out right now. There's never been a better time to communicate and contact people and get in touch with people and try to help out and try to offer solutions, because if you can help someone now, then once we get beyond this point, I think it's going to be a great advantage for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On a personal level, in terms of influence, recommendations, and practicality, is there a book that you would recommend that people read, or something that means something to you?
I listen to quite a lot of ebooks rather than reading books. I haven't got the attention span to sit and read things. Quite often we'll get papers through for meetings and whatever, but there is an audio and printed book of the first 90 days. The author escapes me, but I'm sure we'll be able to find it on Google. But it's essentially about first 90 days. If you're going into an organization for the first 90 days, what impact do you want to create? How you should go about that? What you should do? And although it is based on the first 90 days of a new job or a promotion, actually just to be able to check in with that every now and again to make sure that you're on the right track is really useful.
Yeah, and does this apply to the employee or the employer, or both?
I think it can apply to both. It's more about how you work yourself, what questions to ask, what not to ask, how to conduct yourself. And don't get me wrong, we far from get it right all the time. I've got, quite a weaker spot of mine is that I do wear my heart on my sleeve. So sometimes I get it wrong because I'm quite reactive and emotional about things. And reading the sort of structured books like that sort of give you that sort of mindset of having a bit more emotional intelligence about things.
Great point. Suspend reality for a moment. time travel is possible, where would you go and why?
I'd probably go to the conversation where Trump decided he was going to run for president. And I would have just loved to hear what his conversation fly on the wall was. And if I could have another moment, it would be when Barack Obama and his wife had to meet the Trumps, because that's a really great book as well. Michelle Obama's book is fantastic, really, really great book. And just to see them two as couples together, Melania and Donald Trump and Barack and Michelle Obama would have been fantastic to see.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Chalk and cheese, I believe. I believe, you know.
The opposites work, so.
Yeah, absolutely. That would, yeah. I'm sure there's quite a few of those classic meetings down throughout history where people with opposite opinions have had to sit together at the same table, and well, hopefully they can all be professional about it, right? That's what we expect from people at that level. Suspending reality one more time. Your home's on fire. Everybody gets out safe. You can only grab one thing as you rush out the door. What do you pick up?
Everybody gets out safe.
That's the first thing. Everybody gets out safe.
Don't need to worry about my child and my dog in one big swoop then. No?
One under each arm.
Yes, I would manage that, no problem. You have no idea what they're going to do when they put their mind to it.
Kicking your husband in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. Dragging him as well. I would manage to get them all.
Okay, and basically, you know, is there some object around about that means something to you?
I would probably grab my top drawer of my dresser, and there is no value in it at all, but it's got
just like the drawer.
Just the drawer. If that's how quick we need to be in this file. Luckily, it's just a little drawer.
Oh, okay.
But it has got some really sentimental items in. You know, it's silly things like the first gift Alan got me, right the way through to jewelry that my nana left me when she passed last year, and things in between. So that's kind of my drawer. So
yeah,
you know, if you need a bit of an emotional time, or you need a bit of lifting up, you know, this is like a magical drawer that does both of those things for you.
Wow. Sounds like a nice thing to have. Reflecting on the work that you've done so far, and maybe projecting into the future about things that you will do, what kind of legacy would you like to leave behind with your work?
I would like to leave a strong, well-known, respected chamber. And I think when I'm
That's short and sweet. Yeah. That's lovely.
And I think when we're there, you know, I think we're in a good track to being there, with a couple of hurdles in the way. You know, the critic in me says, will I ever be at that point? You know, because will you ever get to that place? You're always striving for something else, but who knows? I'll know when I get there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great answer. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for finding time today to do this interview, because I know you're a very busy person. I would also like to thank you on a personal level for all the great work that I've seen the Chamber do. Even though I don't have a lot of direct contact with the Chamber, I'm one of those people that follows the emails and follows the posts and read things as they're put out. So I want to really thank you for all the hard work that you've been doing for the community recently. And if people are interested in getting in contact with you or with the Chamber, where can they go? How can they do it?
I'm pretty much everywhere. So murraychamber.co.uk. We've got social channels, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm getting much more confident on LinkedIn now. I used to be one of these people who would shy away from it because there was, I mean, just the nature of my position, I get a lot of requests from a lot of people, and knowing what's genuine and what's not can be quite difficult. So I used to shy away from it, but I've kind of flipped that and embracing it now. So reach out on LinkedIn, let me know what you're up to, and if you want a virtual coffee.
Okay, super cool. So people out there, that's your job. You have to reach out and connect with the chamber. You know where they are. You know what they do. On a personal level, I wish you great success in the future. And once again, thank you very much for your time today.
And thank you, Jay. It's been a pleasure.
Made in Moray is a product of the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching. Book a free online personal or professional development consultation today. What are you waiting for?